Hi guys, it's Hunter Hamilton back with Servant Sonic, and I'm really excited for this episode. I'm joined by the founders of the metal band Unbowed. We have Mr. Alex Snape and Yoan Tetlow. Guys, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. Well, I'd first like to say I know that you've done a ton of press for this record. Of course, your new record, Color the Soul. And I wondered, how's the reception been lately? Have you guys been checking out the reviews?
Do you want me to? Okay.
Whoever wants to.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I was going to take this one.
I think overall it's been the most well-received release we've ever put out. We've definitely gotten the most press and probably overall most positive reviews and everything. So yeah, it's been really, really good to see people. A lot of people pre-ordered the album, or lots and lots of people have streamed it and bought it online and stuff. So it's really awesome. It's good to see it, doing well after all that time we put into it. So it's awesome. Yeah.
Right on. And I guess I know that with what's it's been for, I guess, for you guys, because I know that you've been doing it for so long now. What's the evolution been like for you guys in like keeping with this project for so long? Because I know that there's been so many lineup changes. My favorite, I still have the memory of, I believe it was Dogma, when you guys described it to me as you kicked everybody out and you started fresh. That always stuck with me for some reason. But we're looking back, what's that evolution been like? If you haven't taken time to reflect on that so far.
Yeah, we just get real sick of people real fast. No. That was around the time of like changing sounds quite drastically, I'd say. Realistically, it was around the time big changes in all of our lives were happening as well. So a lot of people moving away to university, so that probably added into it. If I'm remembering correctly, it was like 2014 or so, 2015. And so when me and Alex started Unbowed, it was more of a folk metal thing from high school, and not that that's like exactly a bad thing per se, but I think the way we wanted to start architecturally designing the music to sound was not so much fitting in a box of just strictly I don't know, like that sort of genre is quite confining, I guess. There's like a lot of things like it has to tick the boxes of, kind of like a lot of black metal, like people will say this isn't black metal to us today and things like this. So genre has been something we've really wrestled with for a long time, because we're not necessarily ready to confine ourselves to just one thing. And I know how like cliche that sounds, but like truly, like most of my other projects, I'm really good with trying to fit them into a certain aesthetic, because that obviously has its place for certain projects, as Alex would say too. But with Unbowed, it seems more like more human in my brain of brains, I think, where it just feels more or less like our entire emotions, which aren't necessarily cohesive with one another. It's more human to understand that we're not so polarized with the way we think and the way we feel things. If you're truly being honest with another soul, you're probably going to sound a little crazy, you know? And I think the music kind of does that in a way.
Yeah, the music hasn't really stagnated. Like as our lives were changing a lot there, and the people around us, and yeah, we kind of had to strip the band back to just us and let us kind of decide what where we were going to go with it from there, because we wanted it to be a lot more I don't know, just indicative of where we felt we were going, and we felt kind of held back and confined by the way the band was set up before. So I think it's been good. It's been a good evolution, because we've been able to be honest with whatever kind of music or art we want to make. And that's always like the kind of guiding force behind it.
Well, absolutely. And that's glad to hear. And I guess that lead in getting to the actual album, and I know that you guys have probably talked about the album to death, and it's actually very philosophical, and I was wondering if you guys could talk about the concept of the album that you've done probably a million times by now.
No, that's okay.
Yeah,
No problem.
it's kind of like everything we love to talk about in real life too. It's just all about fitting nothing in particular other than the idea of a soul, which is a debatable concept to most schools of thought anyway, wherein, we have our five senses, but essentially what we try and tackle is the idea that, there is a lot more than just those senses that make us human. I think there's a lot more at play here other than just mapping out the millions of nodes in a brain, which makes us a human. There's a lot of talk of like AI going around today, and it's almost cohesive with what we're talking about, because although you might be able to map out a brain in like 20 years time and make like an artificial human, or even kind of immortalize yourself in a certain way, uh, we're changing constantly. Like everything that happens in our lives, maybe we, you know, several examples. You get a dog, you feel happier. You break up with your girlfriend, you're a different person in a year's time. That's truly human. Is like the motion of moving through various different thoughts, ideas, patterns, and habits, maybe. And so the biggest inspiration for the album was probably the philosopher and psychoanalyst Carl Jung, who very like midway through his career started speaking about this map of the soul, and understanding that just because it is more or less a nondescript subject, you could try and figure it out and try and understand that there's different aspects of the soul, so to speak. And so understanding how that kind of fits in to a human's life, and understanding how there's an internal battle going on with every human that you're ever talking to. You never really truly meet the same person twice, in my opinion. And so when we live in an age where we're stagnated by opinions and tribalized ideas of things, it was truly the best album to make in our minds, and create it over the course of like half a decade, basically now. Uh, Understanding that even us during the making of this have gone through so many things, and like me as a person has changed since then. Alex has changed. Band members have changed, like literally as well. So not the same lineup as well. Truly, the best way and the only way we could have made this album was taking the time to live life. I think that's why it sounds so raw to me.
Wow. That's awesome. I love kind of that outlook, and it's just made me really think about the album so much more now. Obviously, of course, you mentioned, and probably with all of artistic endeavors, at least for bands, is of course the pandemic being a thing, putting everything on hold. Did that really help in kind of, like, I guess, the vision of what you guys had, was that really,
Yeah.
did you guys like, was that sculpted in a very meticulous way, getting that idea with the pandemic going on, or what was that process like in those kind of dead years time?
Well, Johan had already had that, or the concept of doing it around Carl Jung's Map of the Soul prior to the pandemic.
Right.
I feel like that was an idea you put to us in 2018. So I think that we had the foundation there, and like all the music was pretty much written before the pandemic, but the pandemic definitely allowed us more time to plan out the release, and like doing some proper press around the album and stuff like that. So I think it kind of just let us get all of our ducks in a row, which is probably the best outlook you could have on something like that. Like, rather than just being like, oh yeah, it fucking stopped everything, man. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Can I swear?
Absolutely, yeah. No.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of it gave it another level as well too, in many ways. Wherein, like, well, personally, like knowing what the album's about, I know it's pretty hard, especially if you're screaming a lot of the lyrics, for a lot of people to understand it unless
Fair
you're
enough.
reading the lyrics along. But I think you're going to get emotion no matter what you're listening to it from. But especially something as like besieging as just like being alone for that long for so many people, it really made people kind of flee or look at what they don't like about themselves and their lives, maybe. Like, I know there's a lot of people who were very alone during a lot of that, and it either made you a savage asshole on Twitter, or it probably made you sit there and think, okay, well, now I have time to start this hobby. Maybe now it's time to, like, really buck up and do the things I always made excuses for. And I think maybe it's not that polarizing. Maybe it's a bit of column A, column B, but ultimately I think it's very indicative of the album as a whole, is like sitting there and reflecting upon the self. That's really what the soul is, right? It's not actually something that potentially, well, I don't know, because I'm not dead, but like maybe nothing happens after you die. But like even then, you'd want to know that you left this place better than worse, and that's a concept of the soul, in my opinion. It's like, when you go in a room and you can tell with someone who's in a bad mood, you can tell. Like, I don't know if that's just little subtle things, but ultimately, that is a vibe, and that is like you kind of like stinking the room up with you being upset. And you can do the same thing with being a good person, I think. Yeah, but a lot of people, I guess, went through some tough times or some fantastic times, depending on how they looked at that whole situation.
And I really liked what you said there of Johan, of kind of the development of becoming a different person and with experiences and hardships. May I inquire of maybe reflecting on both of your own lives, how you guys changed in that time? What did you notice about yourself?
Well, the band went on hold the same time when I stopped being in university, and I was going through a breakup. So there was three things there where my life just kind of shattered into this realization of, well, who am I? What am I? Like, completely. And that affected the lyrics. The lyrics we were working on before we stopped. And then obviously I don't stop writing just because I don't have an active band. Like, it's something I need to do. Otherwise I go insane. Like, I have to be creating something. Otherwise, what am I here for? Is kind of the realization there. To benefit myself and all those around me, I feel like the best way I can do that as a human on earth is to create art. So despite all of that, I knew that was me. I knew that creating something has to be part of it. But then realizing that the town I was in, maybe it was time to leave, sort of thing. And then all of fate came smacking back, saying, no, there's still things here, and there's still reasons to be around here. And it's just funny how much control we have of our fate is still something that I debate daily. So, but that's how I kind of went through a change, was like this like ugly realization that everything can be torn down, and then you realize who you are through that. Not to be corny, but you know what I mean?
No, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say since the time that we started working on this album to now, I feel like I've died and been born again quite a number of times, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because we wrote a lot of the music, like the majority of it, when, yeah, like Johan was saying, the band was kind of on hold because I was in England and with Julian, who was our drummer at the time. So we obviously weren't playing shows, but we were trying to write music and send it back and forth to each other. And that's pretty much how we pieced together the album. And then Johan and Steve were able to come and visit us in England and work on it some more, all like in person. So that was great. But yeah, it was hard. Cause yeah, you're used to, as a band, being like a tight unit, probably all in the same geographical location, depending on the setup, of course. But
Right.
yeah, so that was obviously weird. And then, yeah, all sorts of, the amount of personal trauma or accomplishments you can incur in like 5 years. Yeah, there's like quite a lot of development that's gone on, I think, but all in a positive way overall. Like, I think it's been amazing to have the band as like this vessel for our emotions or just ways to express ourselves in general, since we were, like young teenagers. Like, it's been an amazing thing for us all the time, just to have something this cool that we can be ourselves in and never worry about it having to be a certain way or not be a certain way. It's like it's a really cool thing to have in your life. And I feel like it's through these last 5 years, it's just reinstated why the band is so cool for us. Like regardless of what other people think or react to it, like it's a great thing to have in our lives, and it's just kind of reinforced that for me.
For sure. It's also yeah, like the idea of it being almost like a vessel is a good idea and a good way to put it, because it's very much so like a therapeutic thing for us. And so there was another interview we were doing a few weeks ago where someone asked us, like, how do we take bad criticism? Because there is like a fair amount of people who will listen to our stuff and be kind of like confused because they just don't really understand what genre it is, or like sometimes we'll mislabel it according to people, and like then they'll be like, the whole article will be about there's no black metal in this.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Okay,
say,
so, you know,
very
like
communities that are that really love to judge what, you know, micro genre to put you guys in, I guess.
yeah. So, and you know, everyone's entitled to their say, and they're probably more right than anything in that aspect. But it's kind of just like you couldn't go a bit deeper with it, like you couldn't look into it a bit more than that, really.
Yeah.
But you know, like whatever, the actual thought patterns I have when people don't like our music are, well, that's fine because I do, and that's it's more of a, it's first and foremost to me music that me and Alex make for ourselves, and if other people get anything out of it, that's fantastic, and that's the reason we do it. Obviously, is to help, and this is our contribution to society in a strange way, because it's I don't know, and sometimes we do get like some beautiful messages from people. Just the other week, I had a guy from, like, he's ex-military, and he says it's been helping him through some PTSD and depression, and that's just exactly the type of thing that we're out here trying to do, is just help the way we try and help each other, and our own fucking weird brains. We all have them, so yeah.
Wow, that's enlightening to hear. You mentioned, of course, there was the time of recording and sending music back. Alex, you were in the UK, and then Johan, you were back in Canada. From, I guess, the writing perspective, is there inspiration like that you found, like when you were in England, Alex, that you found yourself, like, I guess, what's the influence on like a place like the UK? Probably same for Johan as well, being from the UK yourself, or like maybe what's the right mood you go into? Is it kind of going into the woods and absorbing that energy and kind of having that inspiration, or maybe for Alex walking around all the historical landmarks, just because I was probably there when you guys were there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I was just kind of curious and inclining about that for inspirations on writing, if you have anything to say about that.
I would say, yeah, England was a huge inspiration, and it's probably one of the reasons why the album sounds the way it does. Especially like, when you live in London, you're obviously not walking around many wooded areas, but just the idea of like things that are colossal and massive and just have so much weight to them historically or physically, just being somewhere immersed in a different culture from your own in general is pretty amazing. Not that England is terribly different from Canada, but like, you know what I mean? It's like it is a different place, and there are differences to it. But like overall, yeah, there's a lot of English bands like Winterfilleth, especially that kind of like sprawling, expansive black metal that seems to come from a lot of English bands was definitely a big inspiration. And just like, yeah, I felt like every day that I was able to write there was like a gift. Like it just it feels so cool to be able to directly take inspiration from where you are, and it's not like this sort of fleeting feeling like when I'm writing in my room in Guelph. It's like more of this like, oh, I got to get out of here kind of emotion. Whereas if you're writing somewhere that you're like in love with, it's a really different vibe.
Or I should say Europe as a whole, right? Because you definitely probably, it's so easy to travel to different places around Europe. So
yeah, absolutely.
To it as well.
Yeah, we went to Finland while we were over there, and Poland, and yeah, it's all just so much more accessible, and that, yeah, just having that access is like a freedom that you don't necessarily feel over here. I mean, you can explore Canada, but It's all Canada.
Sure, yeah.
Look, kids, the first Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good here too. Yeah.
No.
I think it impacts me a lot differently than a lot of English people who live in England. We did another interview with an English guy a while ago, and we were saying how much England inspires us just from the history, the myth, the culture, the whenever we're there, we write some cool shit. We've got lots of friends there. Our type of music specifically, not to cop out, but like it is a lot more of a thing like there, you know, like we'll play with a lot of bands here that sound more North American, if you know what I mean. And like that's
right.
and we love that shit too, of course. But like it's also um, like our type of music, I guess, is very like European in some ways. Like Germany, they love like Billy Talent. That's sort of like you know, like
Oh,
it's
really? That's so
you know what I mean
interesting.
by
Okay,
that?
yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of just
yeah.
more like straight to the point, like really like over the top, like energetic type, like just like punches, but there's like some sort of like esoterica behind it. Maybe is the best way to describe it.
For sure.
But yeah, but we were talking to this English interviewer, and we were talking about how much we love it there, and he was just like, "It's shit here. What do you mean? Like everyone should be going over there, mate." And like that's an interesting view that nearly everyone I know in England says to me. Whenever I say that me and my girlfriend are moving back there, or like me and Alex are thinking of going there, they're always like, "Why? Like, why would you go?" But like, it's
Right.
always it's confusing because that's just kind of what happens when you move away from like your homeland. So I moved to Canada when I was 7, and so I have this sort of bombastic, romanticized view of it, and I'm already a brain that's prone to romanticizing things. So like when I think of England, it's like, well, yeah, I gotta go back to England, but like I know it's not. You know what I mean? It's just like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm also aware that it's mostly Greg's and shop centers, but like it's also there's a lot of cool stuff there too. I think you need to take the good with the bad, and a lot of my friends over there are kind of just like it's shit here. And it's like yeah, but you never leave the city center probably as well. You know, like
Yeah, yeah.
if you go out and explore England, that's not what England looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Um well that's awesome. I'm kind of just I'm taking it all in. Yeah, that's a very interesting take on England. I'm still not over Billy Talent. That
Yeah, they're actually
Germany.
quite big in Germany. That's one of the
yeah,
few
Yeah.
places in the world where they're
yeah.
also quite big. Because obviously here in Canada they do very well,
Yeah.
but yeah, Germany for whatever reason has always taken them in.
Yeah, they've got a lot of bands that sound like Billy Talent. There's like a one that was really big back in the day called like Emil Bulls, and they were like
Okay.
very Billy Talent sounding. And it's just
Yeah.
kind of I don't know, like choruses that you're like that's the chorus, and like you can like really enjoy it in like a concert setting, probably that type of thing. They love that
That's the
sort of.
chorus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah, yeah.
chorus. There it is.
I
Yeah,
hear it's I mean I
yeah,
think from my knowledge, isn't it like in Germany they love the sing along, right? So
Yeah, maybe that's
yeah,
probably
could be.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
stuff like that.
It's probably
You
why
meant
like folk metal does really well there too. It's like very chorus wise,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, well, I remember you showing me. I believe it was I forget the concert, but it's Blind Guardian, and they were playing in I think in Germany, and of course you hear like something like the Bard song where everyone is chanting that.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty fantastical. So
Yeah, it was probably the Live at Wacken video or something like that.
yeah, or like Through the Looking Glass, it was titled
Oh,
something
okay.
like that. I'm unsure.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, classic stuff.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I guess, you mentioned the difference in the scenes, and of course, you guys being in the scene so long. I was actually very curious of what that looks like, and like, what's the Canadian scene look like in terms of metal? What you guys have seen.
To me, the Canadian scene it has its like its specialized areas. Like it feels like the Quebec sort of technical death metal scene seems to be like the most like recent wave, I guess. I mean, Archspire you also have from Vancouver. But that feels like a Canadian wave of music in a way to me. that's probably the most recent sort of scene I can think of that's come out of here. But
there's always like an underlying, like there's like a big secretive black metal scene too, but we don't fit in with that, and they wouldn't like us at all.
Yeah, we're always a bit too much of something else to slot into any of these.
Yeah, like so the ones we most often tour with will be the technical death metal stuff, just because, you know, the way Alex, Steve, and Aiden, and even Corey or Julian would write is very like technical and like, you know, very talented. So like obviously we can fit in with like the fast paced. We can do all that, but we're maybe a little too melodic for a lot of that crowd as well. So we're just pretty used to being hated.
Oh, man.
Everyone sucks, and they don't get up.
Yeah, no, I get that.
No one gets that.
Yeah, I think it's probably something we've always struggled with in regards to, even if there was like a huge black metal scene in Guelph or something, we would probably be too death metal for them.
Yeah. They would shit talk us into the ground.
Yeah. So it's I don't know. It's interesting to see where the Canadian scene goes and like what it seems to be into and what it's producing. But I think we've always just, regardless of what is going on, we're just doing what we do. So it's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll accept us someday, but who knows?
Well, for sure. Let's get into the first song here. We're going to be featuring 2 songs on this episode today. And of course, we have the first song, Hero Lux. So I think we'll take a little bit of a break here, let the song play, and then I'll ask you guys more about it.
Sweet.
All right, Hero Lux by Unbowed, Color the Soul. Here we go.
Watching
go.
I was wondering if someone would be doing something funny.
Yeah.
I tried to time it perfectly with trying out my new KoolAid.
Nice.
Excellent.
What flavor you
Oh,
got
it's
there?
literally KoolAid.
Oh.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's not good.
Okay, I was gonna.
Yeah,
It's not good. Oh no.
Right.
No, I went looking for the powder, but they don't sell it in Canada anymore.
What? Oh,
Thanks,
son.
Trudeau.
You ruined it. You ruined it.
Yeah. Bring back the Kool-Aid powder. That's what the next album's gonna be about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All about Kool-Aid and the terror of Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, holy shit. All I gotta say is that I would listen to this album on the train going to work, and
Nice.
I absolutely found it bone crushing and relentless. Honestly,
Oh, thank you.
so much
Appreciate
so
it.
that I guess talking about the guests on this album, you have a plethora of guests, which I'm super stoked for you guys. Of course, I'm talking about you have Joel. From Throzenblatt and Woods of Ypres. And please tell me if I'm butchering the names, because I want to do these guys justice. So Matthias Vreth Lilmans of Fintroll and Oceans, and Frederick Jensen, Mother of All, and Planed, I believe. And I guess I was, and like I said, I remember I felt like I was just getting hit in the head with a hammer. Like over and over, because again, you guys are going full 12.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's
Where I
really
was like, holy shit, like I gotta take
Yeah.
a minute. And it wasn't until I believe it's Joel's interlude there that for me that was like the breath. I was like,
Yeah.
oh god. And I was wondering how did that all come to be of you guys getting some guests on this album?
Well, we were making the album. We got about 3/4 of the way through, and we're like, well, we built the album up till now with in mind that we want to be hitting Hunter in the head with a hammer. And then we were like, we need a break here. We need to give him a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a vision in mind, and we
Yeah.
executed
that was it.
Yeah.
God,
No,
delivered on, yeah.
But kind of like understanding that most of the songs are more like heavy hitters than we've had before. Maybe like there's a lot going on in them. There's a lot of different layers and different patterns throughout. And so giving that sort of palate cleanser, I guess is the right word to use there. We definitely wanted it to be following into Home, which is one of the slower, one of the more laid back songs, I guess. It's kind of like what we had in mind was like Water, and the idea of like the more sorrowful, calm part of the soul, perhaps like with like a storm of home coming after it, sort of thing. So when we were discussing who to get, Joel came to mind, simply because he was probably the first one to set me onto the idea of archetypes and studying psychoanalytically the idea of logos, or like the idea of like I guess archetypes. That's just the best word for it. So the understanding of that there's like a story within us all type thing. Throzenblatt 2 was written, I don't remember what year that was actually, 2012, 13, I think. And what the whole idea of the album was an idea. It's based off of a book by Joseph Campbell, who he in himself studied Carl Jung a lot. And the book was called Hero of a Thousand Faces. And essentially what that is the hero's journey. So it's understanding that the monomyth exists within every culture, and that all cultures kind of want that same thing for themselves, their family, their people, the future of the world, sort of thing. And the idea that an inherent good exists within everyone and everything, and the idea of it triumphing over the nihilist or the shadow or the dark. And I remember being a kid and listening to that, and it has impacted me more than probably any other album, and that book has impacted my writing for things like Halifax and everything more than anything else possibly could. It transcends political views, it transcends philosophical views, it transcends anything, and the ultimate message being we adapt, we thrive, we build on, and we must keep going with good in our hearts, sort of thing. And so immediately I was like, bam, let's get him on this. And also being in Woods of Ypres, and how deeply introspective most of the Woods albums were.
Right.
It kind of added into that sort of like feeling of maybe a heartbreak or a heartache, and like a distress in general, and understanding how to unpack that stress the most healthy way possible. And a lot of the Woods albums kind of took that sort of darker side of understanding and maybe wallowing in it a bit more, whereas Joel's work past the Woods albums was about moving through it and beyond, sort of thing. And so when we discussed this with him, he was immediately on board, immediately said, this is something I'd love to be a part of. And he's actually known Unbowed quite a long time, because I used to pester him as a kid, being like,
Oh,
do you like
really?
this album
Okay.
we did? I used to be
Yeah.
like, do you like this stuff we've done? Do you like this stuff we've done? And the day where he told me that it doesn't sound like a Monomarth anymore, I was like, yeah, we're on to something. So we've kind of been little Padawans of him for a while as well. And so now that we're more adulty, I think he was definitely on board for joining the album. And when he sent us the first demo of it and told me some ideas for the song name, immediately it just got me right in the heart, and like I teared up a little bit. That song name is exactly like you can tell he just understands it on every level. He understands what we're going for here. The idea of humans not being confined to human actions, and we can become more if we just, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Without ranting too much. But that's that he just definitely, out of all of the guests on the album, he was the most spiritual addition. Maybe he like really understood the depths of what we were trying to go for in the album's message.
Yeah, I think with Joel, it's someone who, yeah, like Johan said, since we started the band, we've been in contact with him, just basically saying like, hey, check this out. Like, we're big fans of yours. We're really inspired by the work you've done. So it felt important to include him on this album, and thankfully he was up for it. And then with Matthias from Fintroll there, I had seen that he posted online that he was doing like guest vocal work for bands, and so I just shot him an email and was like, and sent him a couple songs of ours, and he really liked it, and he was up for doing it. So that worked out incredibly, because he's been
Another inspiration.
yeah, just another massive inspiration for us since the beginning. So yeah, that felt like just another sort of monumental, kind of like recognizing the cyclical nature of our lives in the band, and just like reincorporating our roots a bit in what we're doing now and how we're moving forward. So it was really cool to include him, obviously, just because Fintroll has been so important to us. And then Frederick Jensen there doing the guitar solo, I met him in London there when we were writing the album for that year in 2018. So he went to the same school as me, and he was the only other metal guy other than Julian and I. So it was kind of just bound to happen that we would run into each other. And
Sure.
he turned out to be an amazing guitar player. And yeah, that guitar solo he did on the Holy Momentum is probably the best guitar solo on the album. It sounds, I don't know, it just makes me so happy every time I hear it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Vreth's song in particular was picked because that specific song has a lot to do with like the lowest depths of the soul, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
if you, in the Germanic myths, which is the stuff that we're most I guess like in tune with, like the ones that we grew up with, the ones that we used to study as kids, like we've sprawled into lots of other myths now just through university or just through our own self-interest, but that was kind of the roots of it, and so that fit for the roots of the album. And in the Germanic myth there's an idea of Yggdrasil, which is the world tree, and from the world tree hangs Odin, the main god of that religion, or and that in those myths. But at the roots, the very roots, there is actually a dragon gnawing constantly on the roots, and that is something that Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung both attested to someone's soul as well. Even the name Yggdrasil can be attested via language to meaning like hanging from, or like on a horse, sort of thing. So it's almost like you mount the heavens, but your roots reach down to the lowest depths. And in that lowest depths lives some strange beast that's constantly trying to gnaw at your roots and trying to make you forget where you're coming from, sort of thing. And that can obviously mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But to us, what that kind of meant was like the things that we forget and the things that we want to kind of shove into the back of our brains are the things that will truly make your character in the worst ways possible. And so you really do need to live there and be in tune with what it is that disturbs you the most. Otherwise, that thing will imprison you instead of you thinking that you're imprisoning it, sort of thing. And one day that whole tree will collapse. There's no point to it. There's a great Jung quote that says that I actually put in the song, where it's like, I paraphrase, but if you're to reach the highest heavens, may your tree's roots reach down into hell, because otherwise there's no possible way to grow anywhere past the sphere of humanity, or the middle world, I guess, as you would call it, which is where we all enact and touch things like KoolAid water and our noses, and, you know. But if you want to go higher than that, then you're really going to have to dig deep into your brain and sit in the dark and think about what is it that makes me a really fucked up person, and then you might have a chance at it, you know. And so Vreth on that song was Vreth was the perfect choice, because Finchol to me was the first like third eye opening to like other worlds, or the idea that you can pierce beyond and like really put an image in people's minds. And so his era of Finchol specifically was when I started like tuning into that sort of music and was like, wow, holy fuck, it doesn't even need to just be like loud, because like I loved Motorhead because it was like you know. But the idea of putting these mystical worlds that I remembered from like my childhood, like listening to all these like old folk tales and stuff, wow, this is still existing, this exists now. Like the idea of oral storytelling, which is so crucial to so many different cultures, like the Native American culture here in North America, or to the Germanic cultures before Christianity started writing that stuff down. It's a living history. It's a living mythology. It's something that still exists constantly within us all. And so he was the greatest storyteller for that part. We had him singing the parts about the worm moving closer and closer towards the hero in the middle. And I say, will he run or will he stay? Because that is truly what happens with every human on earth. There comes a time where you get so terrified by what you could be or what you are that you either run or you defeat that thing. So he was the perfect medium between that message, I think.
I can't help it, thank you for that answer. I just can't help but think of the bad reviews where they're like, it's not deep enough, and I'm just thinking, like, what are you saying? What are you talking about? Like, that's incredible. That's it's just truly, I'm just taking it all in. Really, this is
thanks,
incredible, man. And the concept, which which you don't really see, I guess, from what I've seen in course of in metal that people are doing. I can only think a number of bands that will go into those philosophical themes. So I think that's refreshing.
Yeah, definitely important stuff, right? Like,
definitely, yeah.
Me and Alex have always been ones to say, like, everything that we do, like, artistically and even within our own lives, like, we like it to connect eventually. Like, even if we're digging out the trenches, eventually we want those things to connect. And so what I do with like studying history or mythology, it's all just so I can, you know, properly give these sort of songs and their meaning the depth they truly need. The main concept beyond Carl Jung for this album was the idea of there's an old poem from a story called the Havamal, wherein the death god of the Germanic myth, Odin, will hang himself on the tree, and he says there that he stays there for a number of nights, and then he raises up the runes and falls back screaming because he can't fully understand them. And then he speaks of the fact that they have depth to them. So these are 3D sigils, these are 3D concepts that no one knows, and they all have different meanings, and they have different colors to them. And so that idea of kind of binding these sigils with these songs has been the main contributor to what these songs mean to me, is understanding how to make a rune in our myths, like how to make like a magic symbol truly magic. And so we did art pours for the visual aspects. They all have different colors of what me and Alex felt like were the true colors of those songs, what colors did come to mind through it. Really just trying to involve all mediums into this basic symbol, you know? Yeah.
And it's actually very interesting, like you're talking about, of course, everything connecting you, and because I know that both of you are very active in terms of just artistic crafts. I know that Alex, of course, with Nomadic Arts, you've done a ton of recordings of various music acts, and Yoann, I would even call you a craftsman of
Oh, thank you.
blacksmith work, and
Yeah.
a slew of other projects, of course. And so I guess I would imagine that for you guys, like, kind of, I guess the word I want to use is like really molding over those crafts. I guess it's all strengthening Unbowed, I guess, or whatever you guys want to put your hearts and
Yeah.
minds into. I feel like it all connects that way. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's been a really cool part of what we've done with Unbowed, is just like always having it as like something that we come back to, and all of our other avenues in life has just been like allowing us to kind of sharpen our swords for when we do come back to use an extremely metal analogy.
Yeah.
For for when we come back to it. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about the band, is just like it's incorporated into our lives so much that there's never any weird pressure with it or something. It just feels very natural, and we get to do exactly what we want. And it's such a great vehicle for just expressing ourselves in ways that we probably don't get to in these other projects that sort of delve into specific areas. We get to come back to Unbowed and just be really free with it. And I think that's probably the coolest thing.
Yeah. It's kind of in like a Buddhist mentality, I guess you'd call it like the highest yoga. So like everything else kind of connects to that and can swell up through it. And then you can you have this sort of pressure washer mentality of like, when you're on stage, that's like everything's coming together. So like, I think like physical fitness is important. I think mental fitness is important, and spiritual. And so all three of those are crucial if I'm going to give a good show for Unbowed, even if it's to 2 barflies in the middle of nowhere in Canada. I don't care. It's all of the yoga.
Yeah.
It's all it's like the most dramatic painting of my life I can possibly try and give before I die of some tragic death.
For sure. I wanted to kind of switch gears for a moment. From an outside perspective, it appears to me that whoever you bring into the band, it's very tight knit. You want to make sure that that they're not an asshole, that they're friendly, that they can get along with you guys, of course. But I also know that since you guys are really good friends, that's been kind of an unbreakable bond as well. And so I was actually curious of what you can say of how did like what the current lineup is now, like how did you come to meet these guys and bring them into the band, like Steve and Aiden and all of them?
Well, that was all after kind of going back to your question about Dogma. That's kind of when that all happened. When we were releasing Dogma, that's when we were talking to Aiden, Steve, and Julian, who were all playing in Steve's project Scorn at the time. And they all basically, like, Unbowed absorbed Scorn, and we just got all 3 of them. So our relationship with Aiden goes back to the very start of the band, because he was there when we were a folk metal project. So we've known him forever. And then our relationships with Julia and Steve went great, because we had asked Aiden to join the band, and then he was like, well, Steven and Julian would be down too. So we sent them the songs on Dogma right before Dogma had come out, which I think was 2016, if I'm not wrong. And so yeah, ever since then, we've built a great relationship with Steve and Aiden, certainly playing live and writing music together. And then Julian eventually left the band. But I've known Corey for ages, and Corey has filled in for Unbowed a number of times in the past before when Julian couldn't make a couple shows. Okay. So we've had a relationship with him for a while, and I play with him in Crimson Shadows as well. So there's like everyone who's involved in the band right now, like, gets along great and can be productive and be awesome. So I think it's perfect. It's definitely the healthiest it's been in terms of like a major lineup in that kind of way. Like there's always been, stuff that's happened before, but it's all just led to how strong we are now. So it's good.
That's great to hear. I didn't want to also take away from what we just listened to. I know that you guys were doing some video work. In the past, I know that you've kind of independently shot in the woods, and all that stuff. But what was that like? I believe you were working with, is it Michael Krusty? Is that who it is?
Yeah.
How was the video experience for you guys and that?
It was awesome. He's a great sort of local area GTA kind of video director and filmer. So yeah, we had seen his work with a few other local bands like Raider and Invicta, and we thought their videos looked great. So we went for him, and yeah, I'm really, really thankful we went for an outside source to do the video for us, because like it's just a lot of work to make a video, and sometimes it's really good to just hire someone who knows what they're doing. That's their craft. That's their thing. So it made it easier for us to just focus on other elements of what we were trying to do. And we trusted his sort of interpretation of our vision. So, and he's really good at going back and forth with you if you want to, make edits or something isn't the way that you envision. So yeah, it was awesome to work with him. We're definitely really happy with how the video for Hero Lex turned out.
I've only got a couple more questions for you guys, and then I'll let you go. I can't help but recall, when I first saw your updates of having, let's say, like the Fintroll feature or someone from Fintroll, I was still very green in terms of finding myself for metal. And I remember, I think that was when a mutual colleague, Eric Pataki, I think, and also you guys told me about listening to Fintroll. So it was kind of this full circle moment.
Yeah, totally, right?
That you guys saw. And then, of course, me and Alex had a French class in high school. So Alex, I think, told me Amon Amarth for the first time.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking of that earlier today. I totally remember you turning around at one point and showing me Amon Amarth on your iPod. And I was like, fuck yes, man. Like, yeah.
I remember, I was like, Alex, is there anything you're going to go? You'll listen to this. And he shows me Twilight of the Thunder God. And that opened the door. So
yeah, that's such like a beautiful song. It's so like, as like pounding as it is, it's an incredible melody. It kind of like gets right in your head
great.
there. Yeah, I'm glad you were open to it back then.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of come full circle in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess leading into that, is there two questions for you? If you had to go back in time of being back in high school, what would you say to your younger selves with the experiences you have now?
Whoa.
Deep questions here.
Mm.
If anything, really.
I think
I'd give me a big fist bump. I'd just be like, word, dude, you got it.
You did it. Yeah.
You got this. That's a hard one, man.
I think it's something that goes a lot deeper even than high school, wherein I think that's something you can do with every step you take, is you can constantly go back to those time periods and reflect with your former self. And there's a lot of the time that I spend doing so, trying to remember things I might have forgotten, just so I can bring that kid's dream further light and truly try and flesh out exactly what that person would want me to be right now in this moment. And even going back further, I think even to when I first met you in grade 2, we were the only two kids crying before class.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Right?
Yep.
And like I didn't know anyone. I think you were new to the school maybe, and just you can tell who else is on the same wavelengths with reality. And even though most of those kids and most of those parents were probably looking at us like, what the fuck are they doing? I was truly happy to see someone in so much dread, just as I was, because it
Me
made
too.
it more real. It made me
Yeah.
realize this one gets it. This guy knows. And here we are in 2022, still getting it and still knowing exactly the same wavelengths. You know, we might not have millions of people watching this, or we might have millions of people listening to our songs, but we get our messages and we understand that we can enjoy 57 minutes and 6 seconds of each other's time and beyond, because truly we are someone who understands that it's important to continue that childish cry when you need to, that important, I don't really fucking care if there's a line of people thinking that I'm strange for crying right now. It's more important than that. It's important to understand that you're alive and that you're feeling things, and those things matter not only to you now and the people who brought you here, but to your future self. Because when you look back at that scrapbook, you can at least say, I did exactly what I needed to then, and that's exactly what I'm going to do now.
Yeah, like I wouldn't give myself any specific anything. It would just be like, yeah, keep going. Like
Yeah.
follow what you want to do. That's all I've ever done. And
Yeah.
For better or for worse, like that's
no regrets.
Yeah, exactly. No regrets about it, man.
Yeah. Well,
even if you don't reach any of your goals, you can at least die on that shore, knowing that you stared at something, a possibility that other people were too fucking scared to look at even.
Yeah.
So
it's the journey, not the destination, man.
That's it. Yeah.
It's all about the journey.
Absolutely. And that's very, I mean, I'm very touched by what you said. And I think what's not to kind of go off on my own tangent here, but that ability of, I guess, like within education or something where I felt as though I was, you know, I was maybe going down a different path than, let's say, where you guys were. But the fact that I guess now that, like, you know, I still that we're still honestly best friends today, Yoann, and then of course Alex is meeting him and him being lovely, of course, and getting to know Alex better, and how we all kind of link up at fires, which is something I've actually come to very much cherish. It beats bars for me, like any day, honestly. Like if like, oh, let's go to this bar, I would rather spend time in the woods with friends that I absolutely care for. So
yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people I met in university. It was really strange, a strange time, because I wasn't dating anyone and I was going to parties and stuff with like fairly like more like less metalheads and more like, you know, people into more mainstream stuff, and that's fine. You know, there's nothing. I've never had any hang-ups about that. I don't think it particularly makes you more interesting because you're into something eclectic. I think you make yourself interesting by being exactly who you need to. But that's kind of what really kind of upset me at first in university, was the realization that a lot of people aren't being themselves there.
Yeah.
And, being a snobby metalhead, it is hard to shake that idea that these people aren't just like, you know, NPCs. People will throw that word around. But I remember being so drunk with this one guy I thought was the most boring dude on earth when I was there once. And I walked him back up to his room, and he was like, oh, do you mind like grabbing me my garbage can from my closet? And I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, he was more friends with the girl I was trying to get with at the time.
Right.
I opened his closet, and there's a massive Middle-earth poster on his wall. And I was like, bruh, you're into Lord of the Rings? Like, why have you been talking to me about the Jays game this whole time? And it was this sort of realization that not everything you find interesting is something you feel like you can share, I guess, is a lot of people's opinions. Yeah. And he was like, oh, I thought that was like stupid. And like, since I've been in university, I just didn't think I had to share things like that. And then he goes down the rabbit hole, all these other things that I like that he likes. And he was like, fuck, I didn't think there'd be anything like that. I've just been so scared since I got here that people would not like that stuff. And I thought it was so perplexing. But then he moved into telling me, like, you know, he's had like suicidal thoughts and just like feeling so alone, even though when I saw him at this party, there was like 17 people he was going up to constantly. But it's not the same, you know? And when I tell people that I have the same friends I've had since grade fucking 2, and we go to the woods and we act like idiots around a fire. That's not something that's normal for people, but it should be, because I think it really does keep people like me, you, and Alex sane, knowing that there's another fucking group of oddballs waiting for us in the woods. You know, it's a wild thing that we've just all seemed to do, but like it's not a common thing, and it should be.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely.
It's definitely why I don't need a therapist. Maybe I still do. I don't know, but like you know, for now, I'm good. For now, I'm okay.
I really like what you said there, Johan, and with Alex, where you were talking about even in London, where it's like you and Julian, of course, were the metal guys, but you saw someone that was also
Yeah.
in the metal, and then I feel like I don't know, I can't help but feel like when you see another metalhead, like obviously like maybe attire wise, and then it's like I can talk to you, and it's like, or maybe you felt that way, or
No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It just it instantly lets you know. Sorry to cut you off, Johan.
No.
That there's like, I don't know. Hopefully, the person is aware of like the concept of nuance, or
Yeah.
is into something relatively eclectic or counterculture. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be best friends, but it definitely means that you might have a similar sort of scholarly interest in like looking a little deeper into something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's indicative, and it's kind of telling that the fact that the only other metal dude I ran into at my school there ends up playing an incredible guitar solo on my album, because he just like, there was no other filter beyond like a friend of mine was like, yo, this guy's into like rock and metal, you should probably talk to him. And then that was it. And it was like, oh, of course we get along. And yeah. So it is kind of a way of filtering, I suppose, in a way.
Metal's a big one like that. I think stand-up comedians have it too. Like you are a tribe in some degree, and you do know that despite there being no psychic connection, you probably know a lot of that guy's interests just by looking at him, because it's more of an overt culture. It's scarily seeming to disappear from high schools, according to a lot of my friends, like younger siblings and stuff. But and like I think it's a lot of the time people outside of like having a tribe like that, you are kind of scared to show your personality to certain people, because if you all look kind of the same and you can't really tell who's who, there is this sort of standoffishness, I guess, for a lot of people. So it's an advantage that we've all had, because we've never really given a fuck, I guess, since we were younger. Like, well, if you don't like it, like, I'm sure I'll find someone who does. And also I'm like fine just sitting alone listening to summoning as well. It's kind of my favorite thing to do still. So like, it's all right if I don't. But that's not something that a lot of people have, and that's not even like to shit on them. Like, that's just like, it's harder for some people to show who they are to people, I guess. It's just like the idea of putting yourself out there is terrifying. Whereas, I don't know, maybe it's my astrology chart. I just love being like, I want everyone to look at me all the time. I'm like, yeah.
I really liked what you said. I guess the camaraderie of it. I just wanted to share, and probably you guys have had similar reactions at shows where, when I went to go see Dying Fetus, there was the pit was going the whole entire time, and at first I was scared shitless because I've never been to a death metal show prior to that. So I'm like, I'm just gonna get in there and do it. So I go into the pit. And
nice.
I'm literally like scared shitless. I'm like,
that's
okay,
awesome.
There's so many bodies, and I get back out. And then there's a time where like I could feel myself like lingering, like if I don't get in there, I'm gonna have that regret, because
I do that.
The next time they're gonna come to town again. So then I forced myself to get back into the pit. I kind of got the rhythm of it. Like, I knew where to go and like what happened, and I stayed there for like 4 or 5 songs. So that revelation of what you were talking about, of like conquering the stuff that scares you. So I've been really trying to push that now, and I'm just glad that I've come to the right realization of that now. Not to take away from the interview with you guys.
That's a beautiful thing, man.
And I guess the fascination that. 2 things stood out to me. There was a guy that like someone lost their phone, and someone in the pits like, "Oh, I found a phone. Anybody lose a phone?" At a death metal show, like I was like metalhead, like just the camaraderie of the metal scene is what always strikes me. And then at the end of the show, like I was high-fiving strangers, I was giving hugs to random sweaty people.
Hell yeah.
And so I guess just the camaraderie of the music is something that I don't think, I guess maybe I'm judging it too harshly, but that I can't see other music scenes having, where people just stand there and watch the show, which is totally fine. But I guess such a visceral experience like metal that it gives all of us, I would imagine.
Yeah, it seems a lot more community focused in that way.
Yeah,
It's not like everybody shows up and gets in their seat and then enjoys the show and they peace out. It's like a big we all just sweated all over each other and
just some pretty weird music when you look at it objectively. That's weird. Like
absolutely.
If any regular person accidentally walks in to the venue, they're gonna be horrified or just
they're definitely scared. Like people could be like scared.
My favorite is watching the security guards. They'll stand there like this, and you can see on their face like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, like why do these people like this?
Yeah.
No,
Well,
but I had the same realization, and like again, like I'm a sappy fella, I guess, but like I felt pretty like stirred up just being at a show at Jimmy Jazz downtown Guelph for the first time back from COVID pandemic stuff. It was our friends Nepent who have been on your show before too, and just looking around the room and seeing like people from all different walks of life. There was like various different people from like different countries, different like communities, but like they all like metal. So this is here right now, and like I was looking around and you could like scan various different people. There was like fat people, skinny people. There was like people from England, people from like Africa. There was like loads of different people all around, and they're all here, and they're good to smile at each other. They're good to hang out, and they're good to be having a good fucking time with one another. Trans folk, gay folk, straight people, all of this shit that people are like, oh, we're all so divided. Not here. Like this glues you because you understand if you're basing your entire personality off anything like that, there's something wrong. We're all just human beings. We all have different things going on, and everyone forgets it immediately. All these fights they have all online, everything's forgotten, and we're all smiling and banging heads to the same thing right now here. What the fuck is going on with like the internet? I don't know, but it doesn't really matter to me. Like as long as like there's still those scenes where people can like enjoy themselves and be like, yeah, well, I'm a metalhead. That first and foremost, or like going to see a comedy show, like I keep saying, and like, well, I'm here to laugh because I've had a bad day and I want to laugh next to some other people who've probably had the same shit,
Absolutely.
It's it's definitely missing when everyone's just online all the time, isn't it? Like it's just too easy to like fight with someone. It's too easy.
Yeah, it's definitely just a tinderbox, I should say, of differing opinions. But I guess to end the show, I'll be doing the same. I'll be moshing my ass off at your show, so expect a sweaty hug.
Oh fuck yeah! Of course.
So for your
we'll be sweating too.
Absolutely, yeah. I bet it gets probably hot under the stage lights there. I've written it down here. We got Unbowed, the album release show. Catch them July 1st, 7 p.m. at Onyx, 12 Wyndham Street North, with support from Nordheim and Netpeth, who we've had on the show. And again, you guys are playing July 2nd at Bar, 728 Dundas Street, West Toronto, with Nordheim and Morse Verum. Is there anything you guys want to say before we hit into the closing song here?
Just thank you everybody for listening, and hope you're all doing great. Check out Color of the Soul if you haven't, and thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll end with a Jung quote right now because I found a good one earlier.
There you go.
Just reading. Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have the eyes to see it.
Well done. Absolutely. Yeah. Johan Tetlow, Alex Snape, Unbowed, Color the Soul. Thank you guys. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me. Inspirational, honestly. And we'll catch you at the shows, and hopefully can catch a beer with you guys.
Absolutely, man. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
See ya.